Sway Health.
Welcome to the show. I'm Brittany Quemby, your host today, and I'm joined by the team from Optimum Healthcare IT. They were the winners of the 2026 Sway Health Award for Best Use of Social Media. I'm joined by Larry and Danny. Welcome to the show, guys.
Hi,
Thank you
thanks
for
for
having
having
us
us.
on.
I'm so excited that you guys are here today. Over the past few years, you have transformed your presence on social media into one of the leading voices in healthcare IT through strategic growth, something we all, would love to be able to do and need all the tips for. So I'm excited to talk to you to learn about that strategy and the success behind it and some of the lessons that you guys learned that you can give to our audience, and so they can apply in what they're doing in their strategy today. So let's jump in. Before we kind of jump into what we want to talk about, maybe for those people who aren't listening, who don't know you, you can introduce yourselves and what you do at Optimum.
Sure. I'm Larry Kaiser. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer here, and I just passed my 10-year anniversary at the company.
Awesome. Congratulations, Larry.
Thanks.
My name is Danny Patterson. I am the Director of Marketing Operations and Events here at Optimum. I absolutely love that I get to sit at the intersection of so many different moving parts, not just with events, not just with project management, but also with social media.
Awesome. So, guys, you were I don't say you guys, but Optimum Healthcare IT was the winner for Best Use of Social Media this year at the Sway Health Awards, which is such an awesome recognition. Congrats again. I'm
Thank you.
just curious, what does this award mean to you and your team, especially, after the work that went into transforming Optimum Healthcare's IT social media present over the past few years?
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot, Brittany. First of all, a lot of people, I always view marketing as we're kind of always in the background, right? And no one really gets to see what we do all the time. We do all the work, right? Kind of the old adage of, you know, uh, first one in, last one out type of situation, right? A lot of people just think the marketing gnomes do everything and everything just happens. So to get a recognition like this in an area that we're very proud of for the growth and was really one of the reasons that led to Optimum's, crazy growth over the last couple of years that just led, to our organization being acquired by Infosys. They are very aware of our social media presence. They have applauded our social media presence, and they're trying to learn from us from that perspective of how we churn out content and then use social media to promote that. So, every set of eyes on a piece of content, which links back to our website, is a set of eyes that will hit a CTA and reach out to us and could be a website lead and an ultimate sale for the organization. So we're very proud of it, and it's one of the many accomplishments that we've been able to achieve within our group that makes us very, very happy and very proud.
Yeah,
I
Brittany, I
love
think
to
it's
hear.
also safe to say, I mean, anyone that works in marketing at any point in time, I think can probably say one of their family members says, oh, they do the Facebook. They don't actually
Mm,
know what happens whenever social media is involved. What this award means to me personally is the fact that we are working together as a team to ensure that there's actually strategy behind that growth and behind what we're putting out there specifically for our audience. And yeah, we may do the Facebook, but there's so much more to it.
Yeah.
well, I love to hear that. And, I love seeing all the social, posts that you guys do. Not only just the content side, but, kind of the personal side as well. So, I'm excited to hear the strategy behind, what you guys did. So, before we get into those specific numbers and the strategy, maybe you guys can tell us a little bit about what Optimum's LinkedIn presence or even social presence looked like before your team took it over, and what made you guys realize that something really, needed to change.
Yeah, if you go back 10 years when I joined the organization, it really launched and built the marketing organization from the ground up. Optimum was just past its 4-year anniversary and was already, doing really, really well. with no marketing. So if you look back at our LinkedIn back in 2016, we had just over 4,000 followers. Um, our Twitter was in the low 200s, and we didn't even have a Facebook at the time, you know. Um, so my background coming from more of the product side, had never really worked in services, but I understood the best way to promote services and your expertise is, of course, to create that content, right? So it was a slow burn. There was a lot of things that had to be in place before we could even focus on that. Everything from, a new website and making sure that website can support the content that you're promoting on those pieces, right? And then looking at the social media as a whole. I mean, LinkedIn really is that business area, right? Facebook has always kind of been more of the company culture-ish type of piece, right? Here's our
Right.
employees of the month, employees of the quarter. Hey, we're having a fundraiser, we're having a blood drive, all that kind of stuff. Twitter X at the time, was more news curation. So you still wanted to have short little snippets out there. We hadn't even talked about video yet from a YouTube perspective back then. But ultimately, the goal was to focus on the business piece of that and focus on LinkedIn, knowing that we had to do everything in the background first before we could even start growing that. And it was a slow burn. I mean, we went from, like I said, about 4,000 in June of 16 when I joined. And then, like by May of 18, so let's just roughly call it 2 years, it doubled to 8,000, right? And that was a slow burn. But as the company grew, as our offerings grew, we had more opportunity to do all different types of content. And that's really when it shifted, especially when that first period of time, as Danny mentioned earlier when we were chatting, our president at the time didn't necessarily know what to expect
Mm.
from having a marketing department. And we started working on pieces of content, and he was seeing the engagement. And I remember the day the light bulb went off on the top of his head as that moment. And all of a sudden, he was totally on board with the LinkedIn growth and the content and was texting everybody under the sun in the organization, work with marketing to create content. This stuff works. So
Mhm.
that was really the jumping off point for us where we really started to grow the types of content that we did that allowed us to then start that growth on LinkedIn from back then to where we are today.
I love to hear that because I think it is the tale as old as time. You always have, or not always, but there's a lot of times where there are those executives who don't really understand, like you said, what marketing does, or it doesn't really click for them. And then until they start to see that consistency and the content and then the growth and the engagement happening, and then they're like, oh, wait, we should really, utilizing this marketing team and they really know what they're doing. They really know what
Hmm.
they're
Yeah.
doing and then jumping on board. I love to kind of, see that kind of change in executive mindset when it comes to kind of the marketers and the team there.
Yeah, it was a really great time when that happened because that really took the guardrails off. That just opened up so much opportunity for us. And if you were I'm sure I could find a way to go back and track year over year growth over the last 10 years. But yeah, getting that buy-in from the executive side allowed us to just really go into high gear and start churning.
Yeah, so, let's talk about that strategy for a little bit. It's pretty remarkable, as you said, Larry, going from, 10 years ago, 4,000 to now, I think what almost 200,000, followers is remarkable, especially in healthcare IT. It's really hard to do. So, um, maybe Danny, you can talk to us a little bit about what was a strategy that made the biggest difference to get to that point? And, was there a moment where you were looking at things thinking, oh, wow, this is actually working. We got something here.
Yeah, absolutely. And great question. I was honored to be able to take over Optimum's social media about 4 years ago. And in doing so, we were able to take all of this content that Larry was just discussing, great content directly from our subject matter experts, and truly making it usable for our audience, where it was that educational piece. So taking that information and making it essentially reduced for our audience. We
Mm,
know, especially anyone in marketing, the short attention span that we get for people these days. So being able to look at what we had and then take it to where we are now. The big things that made the most change was consistency, truly knowing our audience and understanding that our audience on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter are all going to be different audiences. In fact, now we really only utilize LinkedIn for social media whenever it comes specific to Optimum. And I know that I might get some pushback on that. There may be some comments. I might get some emails. That's okay. I'll happily take them.
mm,
But the reason for that is that our audience, the real, truly the target audience that we wanted, that engagement wasn't on LinkedIn or wasn't on Facebook, pardon me. That engagement wasn't on Twitter, but it was there on LinkedIn. So we really started to
mm,
pour to that audience, separate audiences, if you will. So, of course, as healthcare IT, we have the health systems as our main audience, but we are also staffing. So there's this whole added element of recruiting and staffing that comes through to Optimum as well. Whenever we started to pay attention to multiple audiences, not just one, that's really when we started to take off. That's whenever the moment clicked of, okay, this is how we can move forward on not just growth, but on the content that we have. How can we make one piece of content that's specific for one audience really grow and meld and really like a Play-Doh, if you will, to mesh with all different audiences? And from there, we did a little bit of a reduce, reuse, recycle. So what was happening is that those great pieces of content, amazing pieces of content, were only getting published maybe one time on social media. Now we usually put something out there 8, 9, 10, 12 times in totally different formats. So that way it might hit the correct audience. And by might hit the correct audience, that's where the lovely algorithm comes into play. I feel like you can't have a social media conversation without talking about the dreaded algorithm. It's just part
mm.
of it, right? Like it's just there. And it changes constantly and incessantly, and you have to be able to adapt and move with it. We have a phrase in our home specifically that talks about fluidity over flexibility. And we take that exact same approach whenever it comes to Optimum social media. We have to be fluid, we cannot be flexible. Flexible is still going to bend and break, but fluid goes with wherever that algorithm decides to take us. We're going to learn
Mm,
and adapt. We know things that need to get posted directly on the channel versus utilizing a scheduler. We know
mm.
all of that. We work diligently on all of that and analyze what's going to work best coming from whichever schedule or whichever channel it is that we're utilizing.
Yeah, and I think one thing I'll add there that Danny touched on, if you go back to the beginning of our content creation, right, we developed a persona,
Mm.
and the people that are on this marketing, other than me, you know, Danny's been here 4 years, Matt's been here 2 years. So we had a CIO persona in the very beginning. We had two of them. One was for larger organizations and one was for smaller organizations. And eventually that persona went out the door because by focusing on a sole persona, we were limiting ourselves in what that content could look like. Where sure, we're gonna put content out specifically to CIO, but doesn't mean that someone else wants to read it. So we kind of shelved that whole persona thing and just moved forward with the content in general and was tailored, obviously specifically for the healthcare IT market. But whether as a CIO or a director or a VP, it didn't matter to us at that point. It was just as long as the content was being read by the right people in the organizations, then that was accomplishing our goal.
For sure. And I love what you both said there, being fluid and being able to adapt to kind of what's going on within the industry or what you're seeing from a engagement perspective is huge. And the other thing that I just want to, congratulate you guys on is, putting something out there once. I think a lot of people think you don't want to, bombard social media, which I understand from a perspective, but not putting the same thing out there, but you know, twisting it a little bit where it's, might not look like the same piece of content, but it resonates differently with, different people or different, followers. Because if you put something out there once, I probably might not see it. One person might see it or two people might see it. But if you're putting it out there multiple times with just a different, sway to it or different aspect to it, more people are going to see it and you get a lot more legs from that piece of content. So congratulations on doing that. I love that you said that.
It's a
um
different way to it. I see what you did there.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
no, no,
didn't do
no
that
pun not
intentionally
intended.
either. um so I think both of you have mentioned that, that really educational content, but really kind of reducing it became kind of that highest performance content types for you. I'm interested, what does educational actually mean for your audience? What did that look like? And can you share, an example or a post or a campaign that really exceeded your expectations so people listening can really kind of grasp what was really working and helped you kind of make that bump.
Yeah,
Sure.
there you go.
So from an education perspective, right? We're not talking about, you're sitting down and being lectured to by an instructor or a teacher, right? From an educational perspective in services, it's more what we can share from our experiences that will help you, the reader, accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. So whether we're publishing a post about an EMR implementation or super user training, or maybe we're hitting something on cloud or ServiceNow. We're just sharing our experience, our SMEs experiences, right? Where a lot of our content is written in conjunction with our subject matter experts, and we're maybe sharing, 5 things to avoid, 5 things to do, things to look out for, questions you should be asking. So we're really just taking our experience across the industry and across all of our different areas and presenting it in a way that when someone's reading it, they're asking themselves or telling themselves, that makes a lot of sense. I need to look into something like that. So, like, if you look at some of our infographics, for example, a lot of them are probably just a blog post that was made into an infographic, again, going back to the repurposing, but something you can physically print out and stick to your wall next to your desk or have on your desk this reference to say, hey, I read this, I saw this, it made a lot of sense. I'm going to put this into practice here and see if it does the same type of thing that Optimum is saying it's going to do. So that's really been the real stepping forward point for us, is when we really embrace that educational piece. And if you look at even modern marketing right now, right, a lot of people are using ChatGPT, Claude, all these LLMs, right, and they're asking questions. Well, a lot of our content answers those questions, and that's why a lot of our content shows up in those searches, because we're answering the question that people are asking. And so that's what we talk about when we say about education.
I love that you said that, Larry, because as you were talking, I was thinking, oh, they're doing exactly what ChatGPT is answering for people, because people are going to, like you said, ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini or wherever they're going, asking those questions. So if your content as a organization or a company is, having that mindset and answering those questions for people, you will be a go-to, for that specific audience, because you know what you're talking about and you are answering those questions that are on their mind. So I
Yeah.
love that you said that.
Additionally, that educational content may be what pulls people in. That's what's driving, like a social media post, right? Like that's really
Mm.
the main driver. But the main goal is a little different. In my vision, the main goal for our social media is truly to have tools in people's toolbox, things that they can put in their back pocket that they can pull out at any point. Those little things that get shared amongst their team through a private message, even. It doesn't have to be a public message, that's totally fine. But through those private messages, some of those examples that we've utilized, we've recently done some campaigns with our ServiceNow teams that has been fantastic, where we're giving literal white paper checklists for people to go through item by item to ensure that they've got exactly what they need to set up. It's a free resource. It's not one of those things where we require them to meet with someone. It's really just to make sure that they are on the right track in the right spot. That doesn't mean they have to work with us. Hear me? We would love for them to, but that's just one of those ways that whenever we continue to build that audience, and this is the kind of content that we're giving you real content, the tools that you can put in your back pocket to be able to push your entire organization forward. That's really the main goal of what that educational content would look like.
Yeah, and just another thing to add also, by working with our SMEs on this content, right, we're establishing them as a thought leader or as an educator in this
Yeah.
space, which then opens up our ability to have people reach out to us because they're looking for a speaker at an event and they saw this great piece that so and so did, and they asked them to come and speak to an audience on that topic. And that's, of course, a great testament to their knowledge and their abilities and their skills, but also our ability to not just educate but also promote the people who are the experts in the area.
Mhm.
Yeah, and you guys talked a little about a few things there in terms of kind of goals and expectations of what, that content should do, can do, you want it to do. I'm curious, and maybe it's different for both of you, as I'm sure, it's different for everybody, or how do you define success on LinkedIn? And, as a kind of a follow-up, how have you have been able to kind of strike a balance across those multiple areas of business that you guys have for your audience? Because I'm sure success for those different businesses is potentially different as well.
It is totally
Yes,
different.
let's talk numbers. Let's
Let's,
talk about some
Larry,
numbers, shall we?
let's.
Let's talk about some numbers. All right. So, if you go back probably 8 years and you were to do some reading and research, the average LinkedIn engagement rate across all industries was about 2.5%. And then over the last couple of years, it's gone up a little bit to roughly 3.4%. Since we started creating our content and putting it out there, as an organization, we have not fallen below 5.2% in 10 years. And this year, we are currently at a 6.7% average engagement rate across all of our LinkedIn posts, right? So, from a success perspective, we are literally double what the average engagement rate is with our content versus the across all industries, not just healthcare.
Right.
So
That's great.
that's a huge thing right there. Secondly, and I forget what this organization is called, but I had engaged with them at some point where they ranked IT companies' employee social media usage.
Hmm.
And one of the things that we preach internally, and we have a whole separate Teams channel for this, is that every time we make a post, we post it on our Teams channel and encourage our people to go and engage with that because we all know how the algorithm works, right? If someone likes it, comments it, or shares it from their feed, it goes to their followers as well.
Hmm.
So while we have 221,000 followers now, and some of our followers are, of course, our employees, and some of those employees have networks, our recruiters, our sales team, they have massive networks. All of a sudden, that gets amplified over and over and over again. So, one is the quality of the content. Our content, in my opinion, is unmatched in the industry across everything that we do. We hire some of the best people to work for our organization that are the experts in their field, and we work with them on that content. So we know it's getting read, right? We have double the engagement across the board. 3 years ago, we launched our LinkedIn newsletter, which has about 70,000 subscribers to it, right? And that's been great because that's another avenue to get content in front of somebody because it comes to them in the newsletter. But then you factor in that employee engagement where we were ranked in the top 50 in their rankings of IT companies all over the globe, not just healthcare, of employee engagement. So our employees are play a huge role in the reach of our content, which then helps with the growth that we get. So that's what success looks like from my perspective is that the numbers don't lie.
Mm,
So if we maintain, I mean, 6.7% right now engagement rate for the year is unheard of,
mm,
you know,
yeah.
where our posts are getting thousands upon thousands of impressions every single week. Our click through rate is a very respectable 2.5% or something like that, I think. Um, and our website traffic is, mirrored by the people reading our content because they're clicking through to the website for that content because every post drives people to our website.
Right.
I'd love to
And
go
Danny,
back
how
to
about
that.
you? Yeah.
Sorry. I'd love
That's
to
okay.
go back to that employee engagement aspect. I'm going to talk more so on that how we strike a balance across all of these very different business lines, service lines that we have at Optimum. They
Mm,
are separate entities all on their own, but work so perfectly together. But it's that employee engagement aspect that's so necessary. As you know, and as all marketers know, people perform better than a faceless organization. What's been so amazing is that what we've done over the last few years is we're actually working on building up our employees as subject matter experts on LinkedIn. We know
mm,
that they know the stuff back here. They can deliver, they can produce, they are fantastic. Larry said it. We hire the best people out there. We do it for a reason. So, what we're doing is we're putting them and their face and their voice up front, generally and frequently above Optimum. What we do with this, the main way that we do this, I guess is the best way to put it, is we kind of snipe the big events in healthcare IT. And what we do is we meet about 3 or 4 months before those large mass meetings, conferences, etc. I won't say their names, but you all know which ones they are. We meet for these meetings. We go ahead and tell them exactly what our plan is for the conference, and we tell them exactly how we want them to puzzle piece into it. And in doing that, we usually have I call it a 5 week roller coaster. We've got a couple weeks of ramp up, the big peak, the loop of the event, and then the ramp down. And what we do, you'll see this happen on our corporate social media where we've got a ramp up where we may be posting multiple times a day, 2, 3, 4 times a day, that covers all of those service lines and service areas. But alongside that, we're helping our SMEs create content that they can post directly on their social media. That's where their voice is heard, and they are going to their exact direct audience. And in doing so, Optimum's then able to engage. They engage with Optimum, vice versa. But what we're doing is that we're not just targeting the 200 plus thousand that we've got on LinkedIn, but we're able to target the exact audience that that SME has already created and already built. So, for
mm,
example, we've got a cloud person that he's in charge of one specific service with cloud. What we've done with him is that we've helped build up some of his LinkedIn posts, some of his social posts, if you will. He did a fantastic demo at an event, a very large event, and he had an audience built up, and people were coming to him at the event saying, "Hey, I saw this. This is why I'm here." Then, because he had that connection, of course, we go through all of the things that we need to do on our end. But then he was able to ramp back down with them via social media, and they were the ones that were engaging most with his content. That's
mm.
our big push when it comes to the balance across multiple areas. I would love to say that I've got a checklist in the back that says, like, okay, our ServiceNow got 4 posts this week, our cloud got 4 posts this week, we're good here, we're good here. Okay, everyone's like got some checks and balances going. But really it revolves around those large, massive events and what our plan and project is to move forward at those events. That's our biggest and most successful way in how we're balancing all of our services.
Yeah. And I mean, that's so, great to hear that, that that there is a plan in place and there is, strategy behind it. But then, like you said, there's also fluidity in terms of allowing your SMEs to be able to kind of ramp up on their own and kind of take it under their own wing and make it their own and do what they would love to do as their followers, expect their content to be. So I think that's such an interesting way of doing things.
And sometimes these SMEs, they may not want to put their name out there. They're a little nervous to
Mm,
make that step forward. I don't know social media. I don't know what I'm supposed to put. We'll help them create that content. They are not on their own. They don't have to create something on their own. As an Optimum employee, we help them with that side of things as well. It is not something that we just expect them to go out on their own and hope for the best. We really do want to help them create the strategy and the plan around whatever it is that they are making and making sure that it aligns with what we are doing as an organization as a whole. If we have that
mm,
alignment with them, we're able to push forward together so much faster and so much quicker. I think that's a testament to our growth and how we're currently at our growth because there is that interaction. If we didn't do that, if it was, hey, you post about this and hope for the best, I'm going to go over here and actually go in opposite direction, we wouldn't get
mm,
anywhere.
mm. So, as you both know, we have a kind of wide array of audience, who listen to us, who follow our content here. We have big teams, we have small teams, we have solar marketers. So, as someone who's listening, hearing that you post at least once a day, sometimes multiple times a day when you're kind of ramping up to a big event, um, is there any, tactics or tips that you can give these people listening, because it could sound intimidating for a lot of marketing teams, to post at least once a day or multiple times a day because they might not have the bandwidth to do that.
Totally.
Is there any tips that you have, or how do you kind of consistently come up with ideas without, like you're feeling like you're running out of content or just posting for the sake of posting?
Yeah, great question. I love this question. It gets into the tactical side of things. I love to
Mm,
do strategy side of things, but I am also a big fan of checking something off of a to-do list.
right.
So the way that we
Same.
usually go about that is that we plan our social media usually at least 1 month, if not 2 or 3 months in advance. And the way that
Okay.
we're able to do that, again, I know that sounds so daunting. It was daunting for me whenever I started it. But the way that we're able to do that is going back to that educational content conversation that we were having earlier and that
Mm,
reduced cycle. Whenever we create, say, a blog, for example, we usually have the initial, here's the blog, here's what it is, go read it, right? Like pretty basic, pretty simple. And then from there, while I am creating that post, I usually create 4, 5, or 6 additional posts around that blog. I do it all at the exact same time. So it's all fresh, it's all there. I go to our graphic designer and say, hey, if you've got a couple of additional images that I can do with this would be great. If not, I'll just continue to use the featured image. It'll be all right.
hmm
It's not going to end. But I go ahead and create those things in that exact moment. So that's the first thing. So every one blog post, for example, there may be 6 or more that come afterward. I go ahead and put them on the calendar. I go ahead and schedule them out. Tactically, we use Airtable. It's a fantastic calendaring tool. It has all of the information that we need in it. It does not schedule social posts. That's a very necessary little asterisk to go on the
mm,
side. So it does not do that scheduling, but it at least allows us to see everything and where everything needs to be.
right.
From there, we go back to what that algorithm tells us to do. A lot of times, LinkedIn can be a little bit picky that if you're using a scheduler, an external scheduler, too much, it's going to start to push your content down.
hmm
I know that sounds crazy. I know it's insane. I also think it's insane, but it's the truth of what the LinkedIn algorithm does sometimes.
Yeah.
So what we do there is I look at what needs to be tracked pretty intently via a campaign versus things that can be scheduled directly on LinkedIn.
Mm,
Those are some of our cultural posts. We do like a testimonial Tuesday with our class testimonials. We do a couple of visionary voices posts. We've got a podcast that goes out. So it's that kind of aspect of things. Our podcast, for example, could be posted one time, and you guys get this, especially at Healthcare IT Today, is that you're able to then take all of the content and make it 15 or 18 different posts literally, and you can
Hmm.
push that information out so that way it's currently in front of your audience. It could hit a different audience. That algorithm may not show one thing, but it'll show another. So you're just continuously sharing that information. Whenever we do those large schedules, say that's 13 posts, that's easily 13 to 26 weeks. It may be every other week, whatever that looks like. So we're able to really get further down on our calendar. I know it is so daunting to hear once a day. It's terrifying, actually. Even just talking about it, and I'm the one that makes it happen here at Optimum, like it terrifies me, to be honest.
Hmm.
But having that scheduled out is what makes it so much more helpful. So
Hmm.
that would be my
Yeah.
biggest thing of like having an actual where you can see a calendar and see everything that you've got. We've got it color coordinate. Listen, I've got it color coordinated, guys. It is exactly where it needs to be. I know what's going to be posted. I know what's a recycle. I know when a recycle is going to get posted, when it's new content, etc. And that all works through the color coordinated calendar.
I love that. Larry, any
Yeah, and
thoughts
let's
there
also,
on
yeah, I mean, let's
daunting
go ahead.
daunting
Yeah, I mean,
thoughts of having to do that?
Right.
well, let's go ahead and I'll admit that the LinkedIn algorithm is probably the worst one out there of any of the
And
social
changes
media platforms.
constantly.
It's the only, changes
Yeah.
constantly. It's the only one where you can't sort it by recent posts. Where if I go into my my mobile phone and look at LinkedIn, I'll get a post that's 3 weeks old from somebody. If I go to my
Right.
computer, it's a completely different algorithm. So
Mhm. And the
there's that
reporting too.
annoyance.
Like, get up with the reporting too, LinkedIn.
Right?
Exactly. So everything that Danny said, 100% true, 100% accurate. But we also get a lot of impromptu stuff that comes in.
Mm,
We are not always privy to all of the projects that are going on at a given time. So
okay.
all of a sudden, my Teams, my iPhone, my messages is blowing up. Here are some pictures from this event. Can you post them out there? I'm like, okay, do we have permission from the client to tag them on LinkedIn, right? Do we have
Mm,
permission from the people um, in the picture to tag them? Yes and yes, great. So, and this is where, I'll just throw them up sometimes. Dan's like, oh, I have a post going out at the same time. I'm like, oh, my bad. But we
mm,
get a lot of
mhm,
impromptu stuff, right? We focus on and there's other like we have standard posts, like we have our holidays, right? There's the federal holidays and there's the fun holidays, right?
mhm,
May the fourth be with you, or Cinco de Mayo, or National Donut Day. We do National Recruiters Day. We do all these. Sometimes we do fun ones, sometimes we don't. Excuse me. So it is daunting and it's a lot. But I'll tell you that when we started posting every single day, that's really when our growth really shot
mm,
straight up because we're staying in front of people.
right.
Mhm.
And when you, again, with that employee engagement, and yes, they get sick and tired of hearing from us, hey, we just posted this, engage, da, 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 right? You have the
Hmm.
ability on LinkedIn to notify employees on posts every couple of days. We do that, right? But um, it's hard to do, right? We talk about running out of content. Let's touch on that, right? The beginning of the end of this year, right? We'll start having conversations with our various service line leaders, with the president of the company. What are we focusing on next year? So
Hmm.
going into this year, we knew that we had 6 topics in our enterprise application services service line, which is really our EHR services, of things we wanted to focus on from a content perspective. We knew in the ServiceNow area, we had 3 topics that were important for them this year, and cloud had three or four as well. The staffing side, that's just random stuff that we can do. There's not really much strategic posting behind that one, but we knew that we had these topics to talk about and we could work on those throughout the year with our SMEs, or in some cases, our partners like AWS. We work very closely with them to create content around pieces. We work closely with Microsoft. We work closely with ServiceNow. So we can not only do our own content, we're bringing in their content and maybe making it our own or just reposting it, right? So on top of knowing what we're going to be talking about, we also focus on what other kind of cool things can we throw in there, right? We never know
Mm,
when a case study opportunity is going to pop up, right? Our podcast, we try to be pretty far in advance with it. I'm already talking to people about being on season 3, and we haven't even finished season 2 yet, right? But um, it allows like the fluidity or stay liquid, right? Being able to move around and move things around, right? If you have, let's use a perfect example. Let's say tomorrow there is a major cyber attack on a big health system. We can choose if we want to shift away tomorrow's post and maybe repurpose a cybersecurity post that we posted once before that had some best practices on how to remediate that, right?
Mm,
So being able to stay fluid like that, not just with the content you're planning, but to notice what's going on in the market and knowing that, hey, we have some content around that, we should probably pull that forward and move those things
mm,
around. So if you factor in your holidays, you factor in the stuff you're already working on that's pre-planned for the year and everything else, in the grand scheme of things, it's not, you never run out of content because any piece of content you've ever created can always be reused. It may have an older version of your logo on it or something, but it's still
mm.
viable content. And I don't think we've ever worried about running out of content around here. We have 10 years of blog posts, we have 10 years of white papers and everything else. There are several thousand pieces of content that we can always tap into on top of new stuff.
One of my favorite ways we're currently reutilizing content. We've got a campaign going right now that launched on AI Appreciation Day, which was here in July. And what we're doing is that we basically had AI analyze all of our white papers. And the campaign is the concept that AI flagged our content to be way too good and it needed to no longer be behind a gate. So we've got an entire campaign running specifically around older white papers. I say older, done within the last year. But white papers that's good information, that's solid educational content, that's that tool in the back pocket, like we talked about earlier, that we've completely removed the form. We've completely removed the gate. And that's one of the campaigns that we're currently running is that here's all of this free information. You don't need to put your contact information in. You need this information more than we need your contact information. And that's what's been so fantastic about getting to be creative with our social media, getting to be creative with what we're doing and what we're pushing forward. It's something, it was honestly a brainchild of Matt. He did fantastic with that. He threw out the idea and he just let me take it and run with it. And we are doing some really fun and really exciting things. I'm looking forward to seeing what the numbers are at the end of this. They're already
Mm.
looking up. They're already fantastic. But I'm excited to see what the end of the campaign is going to look like.
Great tips, guys. And I feel like you have given us so many great tips in this conversation. And as you guys know, at Sway, we're all about tangible tips. What can we take home now, or take back to our organization and utilize tomorrow? So I'm not going to regurgitate my favorite ones. I have them in my head, but I'm so curious from your perspective. There's a lot of healthcare marketing teams listening who would love to do what you guys do, double or even just grow their LinkedIn audience or their social following. If you could pick out your top three tangible pieces of advice, what would they be? This is, if we're pulling out a clip out of this podcast, these are the top three tips that you guys would choose. What would they be?
Larry, you want to go
So
first?
yeah, sure. So I think what I would say is um, don't don't create rules for yourself. And social media is constantly changing, and it's important that you constantly change. So don't set rules, don't set guardrails. Um, Allow yourself to be creative. Allow yourself to come up with crazy, wacky ideas, and just run with it. And um, yeah, just I would say just don't limit yourself. That was the word I was trying to
Right.
come up with. So don't limit yourself on what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
Danny?
I would say my first one is make sure you stay to the end of this podcast because we really get into the meat at the end of it. Uh, Sorry, I had to. I had to. My actual real tangible takeaway is that fluidity over flexibility is so necessary and so important. You may have a goal to post every day. You may have a goal to post twice a week. Whatever that goal is, it's okay if you miss something. That's why it's a goal. It's not a requirement. But really and truly get to know and understand your audiences. You're going to have multiple audiences. I promise you, you do not just have one audience. See what you can do with the content you've got, with whatever that is, and see if you can try to essentially reduce, reuse, recycle to hit all of those audiences in some way, shape, or form. That in and of itself, you'll see success. I don't know if you'll double your LinkedIn audience. I hope you do. I would love to hear the success stories that come after this podcast. But that in and of itself, I think is really your biggest thing to put in the back of your mind, that fluidity over flexibility is going to be your number one goal whenever it comes to social media. And just know that it's goals. It's okay if it doesn't happen. The point is that you're working on that consistency.
Awesome. And Larry was in my brain earlier. Now you're in my brain because I was thinking recycle, reduce, reuse from my childhood days at school in my brain.
Right?
So you guys are both in here today, which I love.
I love it. I
Yeah, I
love
think
it.
and just to add one more thing, Brittany, I think understand that it's not going to happen overnight. It's a
Yeah.
process, right? It was a slow burn at first, and then we kept adjusting, 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 and landed on what worked. And then that's when we saw, you know, the first one, 24 to 25, 100% growth. 25 to 26 was 88% growth. And we're well on the pace to be somewhere between that this year, right? So it takes time to find what works for you, for your company. Every company is different, every product, every service is different. You have to find what works for you.
And I'd love to add one more quick thing. I know that you hear these numbers that we're talking about, and it's really easy for your brain to immediately go, oh, that's a bot. You've got so many bots. I track our audience like crazy. And I can track all of the titles, I can track all of the things, and surprisingly, most of them are not bots, which is what I think is so insane. And that really is a testament to the fact that we're hitting the right audience. We're showing, and not just hitting one audience, we're hitting all of them. So, like we mentioned, of course, we've got the healthcare systems, we've got the CXO, but we've also got this entire branch of our organization that's staffing. So, we're hitting that audience as well. We can't just focus on one audience on our social media. I think that's where you fail. So whenever you have a focus on all of them, that's whenever you're really able to see success and see growth.
Yep.
Well, guys, we are at the end of our conversation here, which I feel like it flew by. I wanted to say congratulations again to your team and Matt as well for, what a great accomplishment that you guys have done. And I'm sure there's multiple things that are on your horizon, and we can't wait to see kind of what comes next from you and your team. So thank you again for being here and sharing all of your wisdom with our audience and all the success that you guys have had. Congratulations on that.
Thanks, Brittany.
Thank you again for having us. Appreciate it.
And hopefully I see you in the next, I don't know, couple months at an upcoming conference, whichever one it is. Who knows?
We
Who
have
knows?
several.
No.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys, and thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you soon.
See
Thank
you soon.
you.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Sway.